What's going on, my fellow A-Plusers? Welcome back once again to a brand new episode. It is I, your host, as always, Adam Perez, coming through once again with a brand new Supergirl review. We're about to get into season number 6, episode number 4, titled Lost Souls. Excellent episode here this week, guys. I'm actually really enjoying just the idea of the Phantom Zone story arc that we've seen, whether or not it's playing out in National City or in the actual Phantom Zone themselves. I've honestly thought that this has been like a great sort of 3-part or 4-part storyline that we've gotten the opportunity to go ahead and showcase. One, because of the fact that I'm actually still surprised that Supergirl has not made it over back to her Earth yet, that we really are kind of telling this story of Supergirl sort of on her own adventure and her super friends, aka John Jones and Alex and the rest of the gang, kind of doing things on their own side as well. And I've kind of really enjoyed just the parallels of seeing both of these stories told along the same amount of times, and really how one person's actions might depend on the other person's and things like that. So I've really enjoyed what they wind up giving us. I've actually been pretty surprised, despite the fact that this is Melissa Benoist's final season as Supergirl, that they haven't had her focus a little bit more time with her pals, if you know what I mean, that they really are giving Supergirl a very concrete storyline here, and clearly have a story that they're certainly trying to tell, and not just trying to quickly wrap things up because of the fact that this is sort of the last and final season of Supergirl. So really enjoying everything that I'm seeing, guys. But just remember, at the end of the day, these are just our A-plus opinions. At the end of the day, we definitely want to go ahead and know yours. So I'm curious, what did you guys think about this particular week's episode titled Lost Souls? Let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below as we go through this particular review, guys. But that's definitely one of the things that certainly stood out to me about this episode. One of the things that I continue to love here, especially, is the idea of seeing this particular team grow in the sense of our super friends here. It's been really telling to kind of see how this team is going to get along and work without them having their heavy hitter in Supergirl to be able to easily sort of solve their problems for them. And even though Supergirl has never really easily solved any of their problems, right? I mean, we've seen over the years they still work well together. You know, they still have to figure things out and come up with plans. But, you know, taking somebody out of the equation like a Kryptonian definitely goes to show you what your team is truly made of when Supergirl certainly isn't around, right? And so even though we definitely have been seeing each of these team members really dealing with stress and just grief of the Girl of Steel no longer being around, what I've really enjoyed seeing is just how much they're willing to step up to the plate and how much this team has grown in regards to not only their personalities, but just working alongside one another to try and figure out some plans and figure out how to go ahead and take out the Phantoms in this episode. And I thought it was pretty incredible. I'm not quite sure exactly who the director was for this episode, but you want to talk about bringing the intensity, bringing a little bit of a horror element and a horror vibe to this episode. I thought they did a really good job in regards to at least trying to wrap up the Phantom storyline for this group, and in doing it in such an intense sort of way, not knowing who's actually going to survive this outcome, if you will, right? Understanding the risks that are certainly involved in here. And for me, it was actually pretty chilling to kind of see some of our other heavy hitters and John Jones and Brainiac sort of fall and fall to the Phantoms and succumb to their injuries or being overwhelmed by, you know, turning them into Phantoms and taking their souls also. So the idea of having this really be sort of the team's last ditch effort to kind of save the world and showcasing how much is at risk, I wasn't expecting everybody to just kind of fall by the wayside, and really the last two people left standing be Dreamer and Alex, right? The one person who doesn't have any sort of metahuman abilities going out there to still push through and kind of save the day. So despite the risk, despite how chilling and intense this episode was, it really was great to kind of see just how great this team really works together. I mean, seeing John Jones sort of as its leader, as its general, giving out commands, but yet at the same time seeing people like Magan and Brainiac and Alex and Lena kind of throw out suggestions suggestions and their own ideas, really their creative process of being able to come to some sort of agreement, right, and plan to go ahead and not only save the Phantoms, but hopefully try and save Kara Danvers herself. I just really loved how they all come together. And while I know not every group is certainly perfect, how they certainly have their arguments and things like that, I will say when it comes to this group, I feel like they work alongside each other so incredibly well that the pushback and the butting of the heads, I feel like doesn't really happen very much when they're in this big team camaraderie, right? Like they don't have, I don't feel like they have the same levels of genre that you would probably get from like a Team Arrow or a Team Flash, things like that. Again, not saying that this Supergirl team is perfect, but I really love the way that they mesh and they bounce ideas off of each other and are open-minded enough to take suggestions, because when they come up with the plan, it's usually a pretty brilliant plan and a plan that usually works, or at least gets them closer to what they're trying to achieve in here. So I really love seeing this team come together, especially as despite Supergirl certainly not being around. But I thought this was a great showcase episode, really for all the characters in here, and to see just how everybody fits and truly works well together. So I thought this was a beautiful episode for them, and it definitely made the Phantoms feel like a great foil to them. You know, like if you were to ask this team, you know, while they certainly may not be able to go up against some of the heavy hitters that say Supergirl certainly was, the fact that this team is able to come together and solve the problem of the Phantoms over a 3-episode arc, I thought was a great set of enemies for them, and really pushed them to their limit in here. So I really did, I really enjoyed this week's episode. Again, from the intensity to the horror tone to the risk all involved, I thought everybody on the Super Friends team really shined. And one of the things that I continue to love about this episode, or just this season so far, is the utilization of Lena Luthor. Seeing her utilized in this episode once again, I'm really loving just her addition to the team here, what she certainly brings. You can never have too many big brains on the team, honestly. You know, even though we have Brainiac, who is an incredible intelligence in his own right, it certainly doesn't take away from the point of adding Lena in here to just yet almost anything being possible for this team at this point, if you know what I mean. Lena definitely does usually push the envelope. And quick honorable mention, the fact that she kind of creates her own proton packs in this episode, I thought was pretty gnarly also. She's like, just something I was working on yesterday in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep, and she pulls out this big ass proton pack with this blaster and stuff like she's a freaking Ghostbuster. I just really, first off, I love the nod to Ghostbusters, and I just love the idea that this is what Lena Luthor does in her time off, right? Like when she's not fighting crime or helping out the team, she's creating all this type of technology and stuff to really help benefit the team at the end of the day. So I'm really thrilled that of all the people that got to use the proton pack, it certainly was Brainiac. I mean, I know he can certainly handle himself when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, right? But he doesn't really have a weapon for himself at all. So the fact that Brainiac turned into the Ghostbuster this week's episode, I thought was actually pretty fun and pretty brilliant on Lena's part. But it just continues to show why I really love having her on this team here. And one of the connections that Lena Luthor makes this week that I certainly was not expecting to see was a tie with Alex. You know, Alex has definitely been the very desperate person the past couple episodes in the sense of wanting to get her sister back. There are moments when she's grieving, there are moments when she's accepting of what's happened and ready to move on, but this episode for sure, she continues to really push that idea of, you know, we're so close, you know, can we try and get Supergirl back, or maybe we can work on trying to take care of the Phantoms and bring Supergirl back all at the same time, right? It seems very much like people are kind of adamant to maybe push the let's save Kara Danvers thing to you know, to the back, right? We need to focus on taking care of the Phantoms. I think John's perspective was the idea of, you know, Supergirl would be maybe disappointed in us in the sense of, you know, if we bring her back, but yet we let millions of people die because of the Phantoms, right? We need to focus on the Phantoms. So even despite the pushback that Alex was giving to go ahead and try and bring Kara Danvers back, I am glad that we see a friendship kind of blooming from this, in the sense that Lena Luthor steps up to have Alex's back. We haven't really, outside of Kelly, we haven't really had too many people that are really pushing for the idea of, yeah, let's go with Alex's plan, or let's try and bring Kara Danvers back first sort of mentality. But you get somebody like Lena Luthor, who certainly is supporting Alex Danvers in here. And I thought it was just a really eye-opening episode for Lena also. It is one of those things where it did kind of catch me a little bit by surprise in this episode that Lena was still on the putting herself through a guilt trip sort of mentality. I was kind of thinking that maybe she kind of got over that a little bit. You know, I feel like her and Kara have had their apologies, have had their I'm sorries, and have forgiven each other enough to maybe look past some of those ordeals and then just kind of fully embrace, you know, just the idea of moving forward for yourself, if you will. But we clearly get to see here that not only is she still upset with herself about the past, but she's clearly still upset with herself and blaming herself for why Supergirl's even in the Phantom Zone in the first place. And for me, it just took me back a little bit because I wasn't expecting her to still be in that mentality, just based off of the idea that she kind of helped Brainiac kind of get over his own levels of grief and guilt in the previous episode. You know, how to trying to understand how to overcome your emotions, right? Not to trap them or keep them hidden, but to deal with them face on, sort of thing, you know, face to face. So I was kind of surprised that Lena was still sort of in this mentality of blaming her a little bit. And you clearly get to see that her reasoning for wanting to help Alex is because not only does she want to bring back Kara, but she wants to make herself feel a little bit better. You know what I mean? Definitely some selfish motives in regards to Lena's decision here, but I did find it extremely eye-opening for her just to kind of see the selflessness of somebody like an Alex Danvers, who is the sister of Kara. If anybody wants Kara to come back, it's definitely her, but also seeing that Alex understands what it means to save the planet and her responsibility to this world over her sister. You know, that her sister might be kind of disappointed in them in the sense of not wanting to save millions for just the one person, you know what I mean? And so you clearly get to see Alex having to make some really tough decisions in here, and I think some really eye-opening ones for Lena Luthor to understand that you know, she can't necessarily put her feelings first all the time, that there is a bigger perspective out there and a mindset, and it is to help the other people first. Supergirl can more than take care of herself, sort of thing. And so I love the fact of what Alex was able to teach Lena here this week, but also allow Lena to be a part of the team, understanding that Alex at least certainly trusts her with some of Kara's DNA, you know, the last bit of it, the last message that she could potentially have from her sister. That definitely goes a long way in regards to showcasing somebody that, despite everything that they've been through at this point in time, especially considering the fact that you've had my back and supported me in getting Kara back, you know, the idea of seeing what Lena can eventually turn into, I thought was just a really eye-opening moment for Lena, and hopefully will give her a different perspective kind of going forward, and one that also just the fact that she already kind of feels like an outsider to this group. You know, the idea that she brings up to Alex that she almost wants to leave this group, you know, doesn't quite know how to fit, but I honestly think that she's been showcasing just how she fits perfectly into this group with some of the ideas that she's come up with, some of the technology she certainly has been able to create. If it wasn't for Lena and what she did create in this episode, they probably wouldn't have been able to beat the Phantoms at all, sort of thing. So I do love the fact that this is truly Alex allowing Lena to feel welcome, to feel a part of the team, and to really let her know that she is in fact trusted amongst everybody in here. And so I was really hoping that Lena certainly wouldn't leave the team, so I am glad that Alex stepped up and kind of gave her that boost of confidence and just an idea of explaining to her why you certainly do fit this particular team well, right? Everybody has a different perspective, everybody brings something different to this team, and that's probably why they work so incredibly well, and why I was definitely impressed over these past 3 episodes to kind of see this team just really take that step forward and being able to do some things on their own, because I feel like individually all these characters very much have grown into heroes of their own. John Jones is fantastic as Martian Manhunter. You know, Nia has really grown into Dreamer as far as being her own hero. You know, she still has those issues of trying to figure out what some of her premonitions definitely are, but the fact that she has really grown into her own. Same thing with Brainiac. I've been really impressed with seeing how this team has definitely grown over the years and really what they're capable of even without Supergirl around. So I thought that was a really great story, not only for our super friends, but from some really great insight for Lena, Luthor, and Alex definitely going forward. This is definitely a camaraderie I want to see continue built. I don't know exactly how long Supergirl is not going to be a part of the Super Friends as she tries to figure her own way out of the Phantom Zone. But when she certainly does return, this is one dangerous team. Like, if you ask me, I would put this team up against Team Arrow and Team Flash any day of the week to see what the outcome would certainly be in regards to, who comes up with the better plans, fighting wise, right? Who has the best some sort of chemistry and teamwork and things like that. I was just really impressed in what the showrunners have really given us so far to kick off this season of Supergirl. And last but not least, we do have to talk a little bit about Supergirl here herself, as she is in fact trapped in the Phantom Zone. We do see that they come across like a Kryptonian outpost inside of the Phantom Zone, and a way for some people to be able to kind of come in and out of the Phantom Zone whenever they need. I believe this is what Kara was certainly hoping for, that maybe her mother or whoever created the Phantom Zone might have sort of left behind for them. We get to see Jason Behr once again playing Kara's father in this episode, along with Princess Nixie, if you will. But Princess Nixie winds up turning out to be just a crazy, probably serial killer, or somebody that has evil intentions up their sleeves for themselves. As we do see Kara's father wind up getting injured, forced to kind of leave him behind in order to repair sort of this escape, if you will, from the Phantom Zone. It's like, I believe the mirror that they were looking for. Once you activate the machine, the mirror showcased wherever you certainly want to go ahead and go. But unfortunately, the mirror was cracked in this episode, and so it's up to Supergirl and the rest of her father and Nixie to go ahead and find the mirror's replacement. And even though that they do, unfortunately, Kara's father winds up getting injured, and it's really up to Nixie and Supergirl to go ahead and fix the machine. And despite the fact of fixing the machine, this is where we really come to see that Nixie's just been playing them this whole entire time. She's really just trying to get out of there and get back to her home planet. But the only way to go ahead and go about doing that is to go to Earth first before she can actually go back to her home planet. And she comes to reveal that she's the one that wind up attacking her father. I think she said one of her motives was the idea that she was trying to get Supergirl to start being on her own again, not having to rely so much and be dependent on their fathers. Clearly, Nixie has a bad relationship with her own, so she's trying to take sort of some of that anger and resentment she holds towards her own father and put that on Supergirl. And Supergirl's just not having it, right? Like, two different experiences here, Nixie. But one of the things that I will say is that, first off, I continue to love the design of the Phantom Menace or the Phantom Zone that they wind up creating for this series. I think just the budget and special effects and stuff look really great for the Phantom Zone in here. But I gotta say, I just thought there was just some incredible storytelling, some incredible moments, and really a jaw-dropping moment in here when you see Kara destroying potentially her only option of kind of going home, and it just for me, it was really jaw-dropping and just really great storytelling, because of the fact that you're telling like these two parallel stories in the Super Friends and Supergirl, right? The idea of Alex over here having that opportunity to try and bring Kara back, which is an opportunity that Kara Danvers truly probably needed, and unfortunately decided not to go ahead and utilize that, and instead try and save the world from the Phantoms, if you will, right? So having to make a really tough decision in that sense. But then you look on the other side of things and think to yourself, man, they almost had an opportunity to save Supergirl. They missed it, and that could have been the opportunity that Supergirl had, because now the Supergirl sacrificed her own reason, her own way of kind of going back. So I really enjoyed the parallels and seeing how each of these stories are kind of, I don't want to say necessarily affecting one another, but you clearly get to see that Kara really could have used her Super Friends at this particular episode to come through at the very end when she winds up destroying the mirror to go ahead and prevent Nixie from being able able to go back. You know, despite the fact also that Kara Danvers really spent as much time as she possibly could in that outpost, because I believe the self-destruct was actually, the button was hit itself. You know, she was really pleading with Nixie to kind of come with her, and talk about waiting to the very last second to kind of get out of there when it comes to Supergirl. I do wonder if there'll be a sense of guilt or beating herself up in the realization that she kind of left somebody behind. I mean, granted, she did at least try everything in her willpower to go ahead and try and save her. I'm sure if she had her abilities, she probably would have saved Nixie, but it really came down to the idea of save yourself or die in this explosion, because there was no way she was going to be able to get Nixie out of there. But, you know, it's Supergirl, and she's a superhero, and she doesn't like leaving people behind despite who that person certainly might have been. So I am kind of curious if she's gonna feel some type of way of not having helped Nixie. Who knows? Maybe Nixie's certainly still alive. We'll definitely have to see. But we do go back to square one when it comes to Supergirl. Now she's probably going to have to go back and find her father. Hopefully he's okay in the process of waiting, but I have no idea how they're going to go ahead and get out of this. And yet another episode that we have to stick around and wait and see Supergirl in the Phantom Zone without being reunited with her super friends in here. So some great storytelling overall. I'm really loving just what Jason Behr is bringing as far as the emotional level for Supergirl and Kara. I think he's absolutely brilliant. So loving that storyline and really loving the Super Friends storyline here this week also. And last but not least, just a quick honorable mention, really enjoying the Brainiac and Dreamer stuff. Now that they are back on the same page, it's great to see them communicating well. Brainiac is clearly eating his feelings away, not really understanding how to properly handle his emotions now that he is sort of fully experiencing them once again and not kind of putting them away in these small little boxes, if you will. He is approaching them, and you can clearly see the grief. It has turned into comfort food for Brainiac in here, so I thought that was pretty brilliant also. And finally, we wind up getting a little bit more of a connection here between the premonitions that Dreamer was having in regards to Midvale High School, wondering why she was connecting with Alex and Kara over all those times, and now we come to find out that it's because of the fact that they have to go back in time to go ahead and get some of that Supergirl DNA in order to hopefully bring her back. So we'll see what happens here. But listen, I'm a big fan of time travel. The idea of maybe having to go back to I guess I'm assuming the 90s for Kara and Alex should be pretty fun. I did see the preview for next week's episode. Not sure how I'm going to feel about it, but I got to tell you, the first 3 episodes here, or first 4 episodes of Supergirl, have done a really fantastic job of laying the groundwork for this series and having some very, very compelling storylines. And this episode certainly was no exception at all. I really enjoyed this episode this week. Awesome in my eyes. But guys, at the end of the day, I definitely want to go ahead and know yours. Let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below. And we definitely will return next week with a brand new review for Supergirl. So definitely enjoy that, guys. But other than that, do me a big favor. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And as always, keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.